Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Heated Shenanigans Podcast. I'm your host, Scott, and let's get into it, guys, because as you can see, joining me today, one half of Impact Wrestling's Knockout Tag Team Champions and host of Wilde on YouTube, the one and only Taylor Wilde.
Hello.
Taylor, how's it going for you?
Wonderful. The sun shines out, guns out. I'm having a great day. And you?
Perfect, perfect. I gotta mow the yard a little bit later and do some
Same.
errands, but it's not too bad.
Good.
So let's get into this, shall we? You've come back to professional wrestling after a 10-year hiatus,
hmm
and I have got to say, it has been one of the most impressive re-debuts that I have personally ever seen because when you came back, very little to no ring rust. It's like you picked up
Oh.
right where you left off. And I was curious, when you came back,
hmm
was there any trepidation or second guessing right before the return?
Um. So that's like a two-part answer. So, in my own mind, body, spirit, no. I was like, 10 years is a serious amount of time. A lot of people walk away and they retire and they come back 6 months later, 2 years later. Like I was done, done, done. So when I made the decision to come back, it was, you know, um, a full body mind experience, if you will. However, the moment I actually stepped in gorilla and I was ready to breach the curtains, for the first time in my entire career, granted, I hadn't stepped beyond those curtains since I was 25 years old. I am now a 37-year-old woman. May I swear on this podcast?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. My whole body was vibrating and my mind was just going, bitch, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, what am I doing? So like up until that moment, everything was fine. But just kind of like it's always been. As soon as I step out there, it's like, nah, I'm home. This is where I'm supposed to be. But yeah, there was like a real moment of trepidation where I was like, fuck.
I gotta say also, like with this second dance with Impact Wrestling, you've undergone a darker tone to your
hmm
character. Really, you shine so much more as this darker character, and you look so comfortable in this role.
Thank you.
Is this something that you wish you would have done in the first run with Impact?
I don't know if I could have done it the first run. Like, I think, every great superstar, be it musician, actor, wrestler, always says, the most beloved version of you, the most authentic you is you turned up to 11, right? I was so fortunate to start my career so early. Like, I had just turned 20 when I was signed to WWE Developmental. I didn't know who the fuck I was. Like, I knew the things I liked. I always liked Witchcraft. I always liked grunge and harder rock music. I always liked occult and counterculture. And I did want that character to be what I led with, but I started at a time just off the back of the Attitude Era, and there was no room for an occulty, witchy blonde who was either good or bad. It was hot blonde Jenna Jameson type versus bad girl Barbie doll brunette type, and that was where we were at. So, I spent the first 5-6 years arguably just trying to fit in a box that I knew I didn't fit in, but I had to make do with the options I was given, basically.
Fair enough. And I mean, with what you have going on right now with the Coven, it's incredible, and you look so comfortable in that
I'm
role.
having the best time. It's like really me living like my dream. Like that is really who I am. Anyone that knows me, I'm as much salty as I am sweet, and I'm kind of an evil little shit, but uh, in the most innocent kind of way. Like I'm a walking dichotomy.
That's pretty well put. I was very curious, Taylor, though. Over the course of your career, what would you say is one lesson that you learned that you didn't expect to learn, and how did it change your career after you learned it?
Oh boy. Mm, so I think in the second phase of my career, uh, I have gone through so much huge personal life changes, tragedy, trauma. And even when I came back for that short little bout during COVID, and then I had to kind of go away for a year, I came back and I was definitely way more in tune with who I was as a woman, as a person, as a wrestler. I could advocate for myself what I want this character to look like, what I wanted it to feel like, how I wanted it to be read. But I had to go through a few more of these like huge kind of life challenges, traumas, if you will, for the last few fucks to fall off. And once that happened, we got me. And like, I'm, you know, I think I'm not unhinged, but I am who I am completely unapologetically. And I think that was what I needed in my 20s, but I didn't have it in me. And it's not, it can be mistaken for believing your own shit or being overconfident, but it's literally just being able to advocate for myself, but knowing exactly what I want and being able to put pen to paper. Like, it's one thing to tell people, like, I have this idea and telling upper management, like, I'd like it to look like this. Whereas, like, I'm like a force to be reckoned with. I'm like a whirling dervish witch. I am like nonstop writing, nonstop pitching, and I grind on my own branding, my own marketing, on my own time. So it's like I'm on this ride. I know what my trajectory is. It's like, who's coming with me? Because I'm getting there no matter, there's nothing that's going to stand in my way now. And I think I was too dependent on others because I thought maybe I was just too Canadian. It was like, yes, sir, no, sir, okay, just happy to be here. And it's like, nah, that doesn't fucking work, does it?
Speaking of branding, you do have your own podcast that you host on YouTube, Wild On. I want you to tell my viewers and listeners about it and why they need to be watching your show.
Well, there's so many reasons. But here's the truth. So I've been in the industry since I was 18. I'm 37 now. It's a long time. And so many of my sisters, my colleagues, my best girlfriends are in this business. And there's not a lot of depth to what you can find online about them, unless it's their own marketing through Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But even then, these are not just female professional wrestlers. These are mothers, these are academics, these are musicians, these are artists, these are actors, these are entrepreneurs, and they have so much more to tell the world. And I think it makes them so much more valuable and makes them so much more interesting as professional wrestlers, knowing that they have these other sides to them and they have feelings and they hurt and they have all the same life experiences that you and I have. But there is no platform that was bringing that side of them out because to an extent that part of them is probably guarded. But because these are my sisters, these are my friends, it's a professional wrestling podcast, but the only thing that's really professional wrestling about it is I'm a wrestler, they're a wrestler, and it's more like a candid conversation of two girlfriends catching up over drinks. And you're going to hear things that you just simply can't hear on other podcasts because it is like a candid conversation. And it gets pretty wild, like no pun intended. I just say what comes to my head, and you either roll with it or it kind of pushes somebody outside of their comfort zone, and then they say fucking things where they're like, I've literally never said that out loud, and now it's on the internet for all time. So
I think that's a very great, not really an ad, but a reason for why you should be watching and definitely subscribe to Wild on YouTube. Also, Taylor, over the course of your career, either half of your time in Impact Wrestling or in WWE, what would you say is the best story you have seen told in a professional wrestling ring? And what I mean by that is not necessarily the match, but the psychology of what's being told in the ring.
oh wow, I can't. I can't even. I couldn't choose one, but you know what? I'm going to speak from personal experience because there is literally way too many storylines that are so good for so many different reasons. Whether it was character driven, whether it was the actual wrestling, what it was building towards. But I will say the most fun I had in my early career when I was with TNA is me versus Awesome Kong, because it was this true underdog story where I was just like a planted fan in the audience, and I was given the opportunity to participate in this. I don't even remember how much it was, $20,000, $25,000 challenge, where I essentially jumped the guardrails and attacked this bigger than life beast of a woman and got to run the most fun female David and Goliath story. And her and I were on the road together for like 3 years straight. And what you couldn't see is, pulling the curtain back a little bit, you couldn't see how close her and I had become, because she was from the old school mentality. And I respect her, and she taught me so much because of it. She wasn't like, oh, hey, girl, welcome to TNA, welcome to the locker room, help yourself to some beverages. Like, it was like, okay, bitch, let's see what you can do. You're just walking into my house. I'll see you out there. Like, she was very professional. Like, we always put our matches together. Like, she was the fucking best, honestly. But she made sure, in her own way, whether it was conscious or not, she proved to the rest of the knockouts and the rest of the locker room that I wasn't just given a gift to walk in here and be put in this top spot. She made me prove to her and everybody else that I earned my spot to be there. And, I won the KO title very quickly. And like, that's a sink or swim moment. Like, you want to talk about how not to make friends 101, being a girl in the company and be like, oh, and now you're champ. So I think our matches got better with time, as they would, because of repetition and comfortability, but also our friendship bloomed so much. We were like ebony and ivory. We were like, sharing hotels and sharing cars, and like, it was like we were mortal enemies in the ring, but we became best friends backstage, and I don't think anybody knows that. So that was my favorite storyline. So it's actually kind of probably the opposite question you had. It's like
Well,
it was two different stories happening at the same time.
well, the one thing I wanted to point out with that is your debut was so unique because they built you from the ground up. You were somebody that wasn't a seasoned wrestler for Impact that came in. They brought you out of the crowd
Hmm.
against the champion. You beat the champion, and now you're going out there every week and proving that you're legitimate, that it wasn't a fluke. And I thought it was a fantastic way to launch a character.
Thanks. I did too. It was I think because I was young and I don't want to say stupid, but like naive and full of piss and vinegar, that I was just like, I am happy to be here. Like, let's go. But like 37-year-old me would be like, holy shit. Like, if I don't do amazing, like, I am toast. Like, they are giving me the world. I don't think I acknowledged how sink or swim it was, because I was young and hungry and kind of, just like a little bit of a meathead. I was like, let's go. Thank God for that.
So a lot of people watch professional wrestling, be it AEW, WWE. Impact always seems to be underrated and oftentimes overlooked. From your experience being a representative of Impact Wrestling,
Mhm.
what is one match you would recommend to somebody that has not seen Impact Wrestling to get them hooked on the product?
You are asking me the hardest questions in the whole wide world. Oh God, because it's so because the roster is just so diverse. Like, AJ Styles is somebody who has truly stood the test of time. Anything that AJ Styles has touched in TNA, which then turned into Impact, and now he's been with WWE, very, very successful. Any AJ Styles match. Um, the Motor City Machine Guns, anything they've done. Like, I can't think of just one match. One thing I will say that's really different, And one thing that TNA did back in the day and Impact still continues to do is pushing the female talent for their abilities as professional wrestlers outside of what every other major company is doing. Like, the Knockouts were the first group of women on TV that were given more than like 4 to 6 minutes for a match. They had multiple matches on a show. They would have multiple storylines going. And then they got to the point where they were really pushing intergender wrestling. And now, intergender wrestling is not even a term anymore. It's just matches. And, you know, I've been wrestling for a long time. Granted, I took 10 years off. But I've been back and I've been main event on the show 3 fucking times. Like, for a woman, that is crazy. It just, like, what Impact has done for women's wrestling alone, if you're a fan of women's wrestling, you are sleeping if you're not watching Impact. And I think the other thing about being more of a veteran in this business and getting to know so many of the younger women is how much they are fans of everything the Knockouts did in those years in TNA. So I don't know, just go in the back catalog. There's not a single match. Like, the only thing I was thinking about, and I'm going to be biased because it has me in it, is the Monster Balls match I did, which was the first intergender Monster Balls match with Abyss and Raven, myself, and my late friend Daphne. And that was the first time any woman has had a spot like that. And the reason I did that really long-winded response in the beginning is because this has been Impact's bread and butter. We push the trajectory of where women's wrestling's going because we do it. And even though we don't have the biggest budget, we don't have the biggest company, it forces all the other major wrestling companies to catch up because they can't let us do something they're not doing. And it just breeds competition. And I don't know why people sleep on Impact. I think, you know, you have your diehards with WWE, and that's totally understandable. And AEW is this incredible bottomless pit for finances, and they can put the greatest show on earth on. But Impact is the most intimate, family-friendly show, watching basically a bunch of family members be in the ring together. Like, everybody's so happy to be there. It's just not the same grandiose scale. And, you know, some people like shiny, sparkly things. So, yeah, that's my long-winded, non-direct answer.
And I think those are perfect examples of why you should be watching Impact Wrestling, which again you can catch every Thursday, 8/7 Central on Access TV. Get that little plug in there for you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. Um, Another question I had for you, Taylor, is what would you say from your experience is the biggest misconception about witchcraft?
That has anything to do with Satan or the devil. Literally, I am quite tickled that I haven't had any like Christian or West Baptist church people making t-shirts and picketing. But I think even people who are like not hyper religious, there is this connotation that witchcraft has anything to do with Satan and the devil, and it's the most antiquated misconception because what people should know is witches were actually wise women in their communities. They were midwives, they were medicine women, they were elders. And what happened is kind of in the late 1600s, mid 1700s, when you had the Eurocentric males coming into into the world and taking over and overthrowing said wise women, instead of catching up in the education, they decided that they would essentially just wipe out these educated, respected, powerful women. And by doing so, they would come up with all these tests. So, like, you know, you've heard if she floats, she's a witch, so you're going to kill her. And if she sinks, then she's not a witch, but you've killed her anyways. So it wasn't until this, like, Eurocentric white elitist influence of a certain gender that came into our understanding of literature that villainized and made these women devils because they were overly educated, respectful, powerful people. My practice has absolutely nothing to do with witchcraft, and if you hear any negative or evil connotations, it's only because I'm flirting and trying to make people uncomfortable.
Fair enough, fair enough. Last question here before we go and kind of wind this down here. What would you say is one insult that you received throughout your career that actually was viewed as a compliment?
Oh, that was viewed as a compliment? Oh, I have to say, throughout the course of my career, I've read one comment, and it was before I got implants. One person was like, Taylor Wilde looks like a 14-year-old boy with a wig. And I was like, shots fired. Granted, like, I was like, that is so accurate. There's nothing that a fan has ever said to me that has ever made me feel unsteady. And the truth is, I actually don't read a lot of the comments because I'm going to be honest, I don't give a fuck. From the bottom of my heart, I love wrestling fans. I love my fans. And if you're my fans, you're not going to shit on me and people that I love. Because when people do that, that says so much more about them. And I believe in karma. And love me or hate me, you are contributing to the metrics which pays my bills. So fucking go on and hate me. I don't give a shit. So I wish I could give you an answer, but from the bottom of my heart, I don't give a fuck.
Well, before we wrap this up here, do you have anything you want to make sure that we get promoted during this podcast?
Sure, just a recap on my podcast. We get Wilde on Wednesdays. There's a new episode every Wednesday. It's available on every major podcast platform, but it's way more entertaining to watch all of this live action on YouTube, and it's the Wilde on YouTube. And if you are an Impact Insider member, then you get early access on Tuesdays, so then it becomes Taylor Wilde Tuesdays. And I am on Instagram, Twitter at Real Taylor Wilde. That's Taylor Wilde, Wilde with an E, like Oscar Wilde. I'm on TikTok. I don't know, there's only one TikTok. It's not Real Taylor Wilde. Someone stole it, but like, you'll know it's me. I'm the only Taylor Wilde that matters, so.
Very true. All right, guys. Well, again, I want to thank you, Taylor, for taking time from your schedule to join us for this podcast. It has been a pleasure to have you on.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Anytime.
Absolutely. And guys, again, out there, make sure to catch Impact Wrestling every Thursday, 8/7 Central on Access TV. And also, again, do like and subscribe to Wilde on YouTube. You are not going to regret it. It is going to be a phenomenal show to add to your weekly lineup of programming to watch. And for Scott here of Heated Shenanigans Podcast, I want to wish you guys all the very best and have a great week.